tiny house and head to the airport. It's about 1 o'clock right now, and it is, let's see what the temperature is, 24 degrees, but it feels like 14.
All right, good to go.
Our trip started out with about 15 hours of travel. We drove from our house to Philadelphia Airport and then took our first flight really early in the morning from Philadelphia to Charlotte. We had a short layover in Charlotte, which turned into a little bit longer of a layover because it was snowing and kind of icy. But once we got onto the plane, we got to watch the really cool process of having the plane get de-iced, and then we were onto the runway and headed to Belize. Definitely looking forward to some warmer weather at this point. The flight from Charlotte to Belize was a little bit more eventful. Patrick wasn't feeling well and he actually passed out for about 15 seconds, which caused us to almost have to make an emergency landing with the plane, but in the end he was okay and we were able to stay on course and head toward Belize. So there is the airport terminal, that's where we came out of, and then you can see you pretty much walk right across the street, and here is the rental car place. So super easy. We got the rental car and started the drive from the airport down to Hopkins. Alright, so we made it to Belize and now we're driving down toward Hopkins, going through well, some of the main roads of Belize. It doesn't look very main road-ish, but the weather is awesome right now. It's like the perfect temperature. It's not that humid. It's really nice.
Plane ride was easy for the most part.
Got some mountains creeping up in the background. And right now we are heading west. We're going toward Belmopan. It was about 5 o'clock by the time we got to our resort, and of course we were greeted by a Belizean puppy. And then we started to walk around and check the place out. It was a really neat location. There are several different buildings with authentic thatched roofs and an open air dining area that we had breakfast in every day. And then we headed back to our room so that we could drop our stuff off and head down to the beach to relax and cool off a little bit after all of our traveling. Luckily, it was about a 5-minute walk from our hut to get to the beach. time walking around and exploring the beach, we headed toward the center of town to grab some dinner at Tina's Kitchen, which ended up being one of our favorite spots while we were in Hopkins. And we finally headed back toward the room to get some much needed sleep. After breakfast, we headed up north to explore the town a little bit and walk around. We ended up coming to this really interesting cemetery where the graves were marked with above ground cement enclosures, and it was just a really pretty, peaceful area. And then from there we continued down toward the beach. We found out that on Monday a lot of places in the town were closed, so it took us a little while to find some lunch, but we didn't mind hanging out on the beach and letting some time pass while we waited to find some food. And we ended up walking down toward the center of town, and we found a cafe that finally had drip coffee, which is very tricky to find in Belize. Walking in the rain. We went to the other side of town, and there's a big black cloud rolling over. And now it's pouring. And we're wet.
Cinnamon bun.
Oh yeah, we got a cinnamon bun. So that was worth it.
Yeah.
We were getting soaked. On the way back to the room, we picked up some local beer. Belican is the official beer of Belize. And some banana chips so that we could dry off and relax in the room for the night.
We'll go to that place you're talking about?
The Jaguar Preserve?
Or whatever that on the map.
Placencia?
Or whatever. Whatever that was.
Puppy in the road. Hello, puppy in the road.
More puppies in the road. There, just watch yourself here.
Oh jeez. Dummies in the road. The next day our plan was to head toward the Jaguar Reserve to do some hiking. But unfortunately the weather had a different plan. It was still pretty rainy, and that made it a little bit tricky navigating into the Jaguar Reserve. So I'm not sure how far in we are, but the roads have gotten a little bit sketchier because it's been raining for a little while. So it's a little bumpier, and Patrick is testing his off-road driving skills right now. But maybe we should have upgraded the rental car.
Yeah.
That was a topic of debate earlier in the trip when we picked up the rental car from the airport. And we decided to stick with this little, what are we driving?
Hyundai i10, I think.
Some kind of little Hyundai that looks like a shoe.
Yeah.
And I mean, so far it's handling these roads okay. We're all right so far. We'll see. We just pulled over to the side and we're gonna go check out this plane wreck. A little bit of a hike there. After a short walk into the jungle, we came to the site of the plane wreck. The plane belonged to Dr. Alan Rabinowitz. He was one of the main researchers that was following the activity of the jaguars in the area. He used the plane as a way to monitor the signals from the radio collars that he had on the jaguars. it had turned into a pretty bad rainstorm, and he was unable to locate the runway, which was actually the road that we were just driving on, and the plane crashed, but he and the other occupant of the plane were able to escape with just minor injuries. The reserve has a really nice network of hiking trails that go to some nice overlook points and some waterfalls, or you can rent a tube if you want to float down the river. So now we are leaving the Jaguar Preserve. We made it in there and checked it out, and now we turned around. We were kind of unprepared for this. I guess it was like a good half-hour drive to get into the preserve, and then we got there and we were kind of hoping there was going to be like some kind of food service or vendors or something that we could get something to eat, but because we brought a ton of water and no food, which was bad planning on our part. So just take note that there's no food in the Jaguar Preserve, and you're definitely going to have to bring something, because we didn't want to go out and do what looked like a really nice like 2-hour hike to a waterfall, but I don't think it would have been very smart, because then once we get out of here it's another like half hour down this rocky road, and maybe like an hour to get to Placencia, where we'll get something to eat. So kind of isolated. Right now I'm missing our camping gear, because normally we would have all of our food, our stove, our water pump, everything with us, so we would be totally self-sufficient, which would have been normal for us. So I'm kind of missing our camping gear right now, but we might have to just find a store and get some provisions so that this doesn't happen again, which is normally our first thing that we do when we're on vacation. We hit the first grocery store that we can find so that we have food for the trip, but since we're not camping, I think we're a little off our game. We're gonna go fix that. We stopped for lunch and then headed down south toward Placencia. So now we're driving through Placencia, and we're actually on our way out. We drove down almost to the end and did a little loop and then turned around. Toward the end of the island it starts to get a little bit more congested. The road was really narrow and it was busy, but most of the island has these very fancy resorts, and we were kind of hoping that there was going to be an area of public beach access, but the only thing we found was an empty lot that was for sale, and we kind of walked down to the beach, and unfortunately it's raining today, so it's not the best beach day, but yeah, the beach was alright. It seemed like there was a lot of seagrass and a lot of trash. On the way back to Hopkins, we stopped at a convenience store and picked up some snacks. And then we left that bag of snacks hanging up in the room when we went to get dinner. When we got back from dinner, that's when the ants were attacking our bag of snacks. It is the cookies.
Shit, it is. I wanted to eat them too.
I think they chewed a hole in the side of the bag.
What?
I can like hear them.
What?
Oh my god.
That might be fire ants.
Stop it.
At least you got gloves on.
No, I don't. They're socks. Why aren't you doing this?
Because you put the gloves on, your safety. You just threw them all in your shoes.
Alright, hold on.
In the short time that we had gone out to get dinner, it seemed like an entire colony of ants found our snack bag and decided to move in and help themselves. But we were able to save some of the cheese and the jar of peanut butter, thank goodness. So once the ants were gone, we were able to settle into an ant-free night of sleep. So this is the outdoor eating area, and we've had some really awesome breakfasts made by the owner. Really, really good. We had Fry Jack for the first time today, and that was awesome. Like the best pancakes you've ever had that are deep fried. And one of our favorite parts is that they have drip coffee here, which is hard to find in Belize. So there it is. We spent one day walking around town just trying to find regular coffee. But yeah, so this is our breakfast spot. And then right over there is the kitchen where the owner does all the cooking. Highly recommend it. I wish we had time to do a cooking class because she does cooking classes, but unfortunately time-wise it hasn't worked out that way, but next time. That day we headed all the way up toward the north end of the island past the big fancy resorts, and we found this really nice area of beach that we had all to ourselves right by the inlet for the lagoon. We were just a little bit nervous that we were going to come across a crocodile, but other than that it was the perfect place to spend the afternoon. Okay, we're going to give you a quick little tour of our room here, and you can see it's mostly just cement walls and a really cool thatched roof, which works surprisingly well when it rains. No leaking at all. We were really kind of shocked because it was pouring the other night. But this is the room. We have, I guess it's like a double bed, and the mosquito netting. And it's a really good room for a family if you're traveling with kids because they have the bunk beds over on the side there, and some storage area to put your clothes in. The whole thing just has like a cement floor and a little table in the corner. And then I'll show you the bathroom. And there is a water shortage in this part of Belize, so they're very careful about making sure that you can serve water. So you just have the toilet over on this side, the shower, which was rather interesting, and in this area there's no such thing as hot showers, so you have to kind of prepare yourself for that. And then over here on the sink, I left our water filter out so that you can kind of see what we were doing. This is our water filter, and what I would do is just take the water from the sink and fill it up into the bag, which has the intake end, and I would leave that in there. And then this is our water filter. It has a connection on the bottom that goes on top of the bottle, and then you just pump the water through. We both ended up accidentally brushing our teeth with the sink water, and we haven't gotten sick yet, so really pretty good. But we were filtering our drinking water just in case. We don't want to take any chances with that, but from what we read, most of the time you're probably okay, especially in most of the hotels and resorts, but we didn't want to take a chance. So yeah, that's our room. The other thing that we were pleasantly surprised about was the plugs are the same as the US plugs, so we were able to charge our cameras and charge Patrick's cell phone, so that was really helpful. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. It's a really interesting, authentic kind of structure that we got to stay in, so we really enjoyed that. The next place that we're going to go to is a little bit more luxurious. One of the things that you'll see a lot of in Belize are stray dogs, and this one was one of my favorites. She was so sweet. Uh-oh. Oh, belly rub. For our last day in Hopkins, we got a really good Belizean breakfast, and then we headed over to the beach to soak it in as long as we could before we headed over to the jungle. I took some time to get a little yoga in the surf, and Patrick went for a swim. So we are getting ready to leave Hopkins right now, unfortunately, because as much as it rained and it was cloudy yesterday, today is beautiful. It's like a perfect beach day. It's the perfect temperature. The water feels awesome. But we have to drive inland now. We're going to head up to Belmopan. Alright, so say goodbye to the beach. We're going to head toward the jungle. We left Hopkins and got back on the Hummingbird Highway going north toward Belmopan, but we had a couple stops that we wanted to make along the way. The first one was the Blue Hole National Park, which has a really nice swimming hole and some caves that you can explore on your own. He's going in.
It's cold, isn't it?
Not super cold.
Not Jersey cold.
Not Jersey cold.
It was like, we're the only ones here. There's bats all over in here.
Can you see it?
A little bit. So there's two sides of this blue hole. When you come down, you can make a right into this place, and then there's a left to the, I guess the actual blue hole. But this is like a cave section.
Started raining. So now we have the whole blue hole to ourselves. It's a good time to come. It's raining leaves. On our way out of the blue hole, we stopped and watched these really cool leafcutter ants that were pulling these chunks of leaves down into their hole. One of the guides said that that means that it's going to rain, but I guess that's always the case.